5 years after our breakup, with a son already in tow, he still thought I was sulking. In the 3rd month after moving to the ancient town, I ran into my long-lost cousin at the entrance of my family's tea house. "Julia, you're being so stubborn. After all this time with Kevin, it's time to let it go. He's now one of the top architects in the industry, countless people are keeping an eye on him." Kevin, my ex-boyfriend. 5 years ago, we were already discussing marriage, but at a crucial turning point in his career, we fell out completely over a female assistant named Kara. Now my life is calm and stable, and his name has long since ceased to have any connection to me. Seeing I hadn't responded, my cousin launched into another round of nagging advice. I ran into him at the industry summit last week. He asked me about you and said he'd welcome you back anytime if you were willing to swallow your pride. Julia, don't let happiness pass you by. I picked up the freshly brewed Longjing tea from the table, my tone matter of fact. "Cousin, I got married last year. My husband is a woodcarver in the ancient town, and we have a son who just turned 1, Justin." "What did you say?" My cousin's voice shot up. Her eyes widened as she stared at me. "Married? To whom? A woodcarver? Does Kevin know?" Following her cousin into the room, the younger cousin also entered from the doorway. Dressed in a stylish dress with her face adorned in delicate makeup, her smile froze the moment she heard my words. She hurriedly walked to the table. "Sis, why didn't you tell us? Kevin's so perfect, rich and famous. How could you marry a woodcarver? What a waste." I lifted my teacup and took a sip. The tea's delicate fragrance spread across my tongue, soothing the vague irritation in my heart. After leaving Kevin back then, I wandered aimlessly for half a month with my suitcase, switching from trains to buses, buses to coaches, until I happened upon this ancient town. That day, too, had just emerged from the plum rain season, with droplets still clinging to the blue-tiled roofs and whitewashed walls. An old woman sat at her doorway sewing cloth shoes. Sunlight filtered through the clouds, so gentle it brought tears to my eyes. I stayed there, renting an old house with a small courtyard. Life was tight at first. I worked in a restaurant in the ancient town by day, and at night I'd sit under the locust tree reading. After saving up some money and borrowing a little more from friends, I finally managed to take over this little tea house. There was no grand ambition, no glamorous life, but each day spent brewing tea, reading books, and welcoming guests brought a deep sense of contentment. "Do you regret it?" I looked at my cousin and smiled softly. "I think it's just fine." My older cousin came to her senses, her tone tinged with reproach. "You're such a kid, why are you so impulsive? Do you have any idea how successful Kevin is now? His landmark buildings are featured on TV, he drives luxury cars, and lives in a spacious apartment. If you're with him, you'll never have to worry about food or clothes for the rest of your life, you can buy whatever you want. But what about you now? Running this little tea house with a craftsman, what kind of future could that possibly hold?" "Exactly," my cousin chimed in, tugging at my arm with a hint of urgency. "Sis, listen to me, get divorced from that woodcarver right away. Kevin still cares about you. Just go back, apologize, and act a little cute, he'll definitely forgive you. Things will be 100 times better than they are now." I stared at their faces, all thinking of me, but a chill ran through my heart. My parents passed away early, and my relatives have always been cold toward me. When I was in college and needed money for tuition, I went to borrow from my cousin's family, but her mother made excuses to refuse. After graduating, I couldn't find a job and moved into a rented apartment a few blocks from hers, yet she never once treated me to a meal. Now that Kevin has made it big, they've turned around and started feeling sorry for me, but deep down, they're just coveting his status and position. I wiped the smile off my face, my fingers lightly tracing the rim of the teacup as my voice grew firm. Cousin, my relationship with Kevin ended long ago. I'm perfectly happy with my life now and won't have anything to do with him again. If you're coming over for tea, you're welcome. But if you're trying to talk me into going back, you can save your breath. My cousin hadn't expected me to be so resolute. She paused, then her expression darkened. Julia, don't be ungrateful. I'm doing this for your own good. Don't come crying to me when you regret it later. I won't regret it, I said calmly. That day, my cousin spent a long time at the tea house, going on and on about how successful Kevin was now. They tried to persuade me countless times, but seeing that I remained unmoved, they finally left in a huff. As they walked away, Justin just woke up. I held him in my arms at the doorway, watching their figures disappear around the corner of the alley. The little guy reached out and grabbed my hair, giggling away. I looked down at his chubby little face, my heart melting. Thank goodness, I'd found my own happiness. When Landon came home that evening, I was boiling noodles in the kitchen. He walked over to me holding a small wooden rabbit carving and gently placed it on the stove. I found a nice piece of wood in the mountains today and carved this for Justin to play with. I glanced back at him. He wore a simple cotton shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing his sturdy forearms. A faint smile played on his face, and a shallow scar marked the corner of his eye, a reminder of the last time he'd accidentally cut himself with the carving knife. Unlike Kevin, who always wore impeccable suits with his hair meticulously combed, radiating an air of sophistication from head to toe, his gaze was gentle. When he looked at me, it always seemed filled with starlight. My cousin came over today, I murmured softly while stirring the noodles in the pot. Landon paused for a moment, then stepped forward and gently wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. His voice was gentle. What did she say? Was she trying to convince you to get back together with Kevin? I nodded, my nose stinging slightly. She said Kevin's really successful now and told me to divorce you and go to him instead. Landon tightened his arm around me, his voice tinged with heartache. You've been through so much. I'm not upset. I turned around, nestled into his embrace, and looked up into his eyes. I just feel like some people never seem to understand that happiness isn't measured by money or status. Landon bent down and kissed my forehead, whispering softly, I know. Our happiness is something only we need to know. That night, after Justin fell asleep, I leaned into Landon's embrace and told him for the first time about my past with Kevin. Kevin and I met in the university's design department. He was the department's rising star, always topping the class in professional courses and winning multiple awards for his designs even before graduation. He had a somewhat aloof personality, always keeping to himself, spending his free time either in the library or the studio. I'm a lively person, and back then I always thought he was so cool. Whenever I had technical questions I didn't understand, I'd chase him down to ask. Sometimes I'd even deliberately run into him at the coffee shop he frequented. Before we knew it, we ended up together. The first time he held my hand, his ears turned red, yet he still managed to say with feigned composure, Julia, I've got your back from now on. Back then, his eyes sparkled with light, and when he spoke of the future, his voice brimmed with confidence. After graduating from college, I joined a design firm as an assistant. The pay wasn't great, but the job was pretty laid back. Kevin, on the other hand, started his own studio. At first, it was just him, renting a tiny room less than 10 square meters, crammed full of design blueprints and models. Back then, life was tough. We lived crammed into a rented room in an urban village. In summer, without air conditioning, we'd sit in front of the fan. In winter, without heating, we'd huddle together under thick quilts for warmth. Yet despite all that, we were filled with hope for the future. He always said, "Julia, once my studio lands its first big project, I'll design a house just for us, with a little garden where we'll plant your favorite mint and roses. I'll give you the best life possible." I believed him. To support him, I took on all the household chores. Every day after work, I'd buy groceries and cook dinner, waiting for him to return late from the studio. When he worked late into the night, I'd prepare a midnight snack, pack it in a thermos, and bring it to his studio. He hit a design wall and threw his blueprints all over the floor in frustration. I quietly picked them up, walked with him along the riverbank, and patiently talked him through it. We agreed that once his studio's first major project, the design proposal for the City Cultural Center, got approved, we'd go get married. I'd even picked out my wedding dress and secretly filled my notebook with dreams of our future home. But I never imagined that the project I'd been so eagerly anticipating would ultimately become the turning point in our relationship. Kara was the assistant Kevin hired, a recent college graduate with delicate features, a soft-spoken manner, and a diligent work ethic. At first, I didn't think much of it, figuring an extra pair of hands would help lighten Kevin's workload and spare him from being so exhausted. One day, I went to the studio to deliver some documents to Kevin. It was a weekend, and I had specially prepared a pork rib soup to help him regain his strength. When I reached the studio door, I didn't knock, I just pushed it open. That's when I saw Kara putting a coat on Kevin. The two of them huddled close together at the computer, heads nearly touching as they whispered something. Sunlight streamed through the window, bathing them in a warm glow that made the scene look especially intimate. The thermos in my hand clattered to the floor with a thud. Soup splashed out, scalding my hand. Kevin heard the sound and whipped his head around. When he saw me, a flicker of panic crossed his eyes. He quickly pushed Kara aside and hurried over to me. "Julia, what are you doing here? Why didn't you tell me beforehand?" Kara followed over, looking at me timidly while clutching the hem of the jacket. "Mrs. Kevin, please don't misunderstand. I just saw Kevin working late all night and was worried he'd catch a chill, so I put this jacket on him. We were just discussing work earlier." I looked into her watery eyes, then at Kevin's evasive gaze, and felt a sharp pang in my heart. Still, I forced myself to stay calm and smiled. "It's nothing. I just came to bring some soup. You two keep working. I'll head back now." After saying that, I set down the thermos and documents and turned to leave. As I stepped out of the studio, tears finally spilled over, sliding down my cheeks and into my collar, leaving a cold, damp patch. Since then, Kara has been appearing by Kevin's side more and more often. His overtime hours have grown longer, and he's been coming home less frequently, sometimes not at all, sending only a message saying, "Working late at the studio." He gradually grew distant from me, no longer sharing amusing work stories or snuggling up to me to dream about the future. Even when I spoke to him, he was always distracted. Once, on my birthday, I had made reservations in advance at his favorite Western restaurant. I started preparing in the afternoon, applying meticulous makeup and slipping into the first dress he ever gave me. I sat in the restaurant waiting for him. But from dusk until late into the night, as all the other diners had left, he still hadn't shown up. I called him several times before he finally picked up. There was a lot of noise on the other end, along with Kara's laughter. His tone was dismissive. "Julia, I've got an urgent matter come up. I'm heading out with Kara to meet a client and won't have time to stop by. Happy birthday, I'll make it up to you with a gift later." Meet with a client? I gripped my phone, my voice trembling despite myself. "Kevin, today's my birthday. We made plans ages ago, did you forget?" I didn't forget, but work comes first. His tone carried a hint of impatience. "Julia, I'm at a critical point in my career right now. Can't you be more understanding? Stop throwing tantrums over these little things." With that, he hung up. Staring at the word husband on my phone screen, tears fell like beads from a broken string. The waitress in the restaurant looked at me with pity in her eyes and handed me a tissue. I sat there, staring at the cold steak and unopened cake on the table, feeling utterly desolate. The so-called urgent matter, the so-called client meeting, they were nothing but excuses, weren't they? He just doesn't care about me anymore, doesn't care about my birthday, doesn't care about our promises. What truly made me decide to break up with him was that day at Kevin's studio project celebration banquet. That day, the design proposal for the downtown cultural center finally passed review, catapulting Kevin's studio into the spotlight and landing them numerous major projects. He reserved a private dining room at a hotel to treat his studio staff to a celebratory dinner. He texted me to wait at home, saying he'd bring a cake later to celebrate my birthday together. I believed him. I cooked his favorite dishes and waited until late into the night, but he never came back. All I got was a photo sent by a studio employee. In the photo, Kevin sat on the sofa in the private room, Kara beside him, holding a glass and feeding him a drink. His face wore a smile, his eyes brimming with affection, completely unaware that someone was taking a picture. At that moment, the last shred of hope in my heart shattered. I put on my coat and hailed a cab to the hotel. When I found the private room, the door was ajar, and laughter and cheerful chatter drifted out. Pushing the door open, I saw Kevin, his face flushed crimson from drinking, while Kara held his arm and whispered something to him in a familiar, intimate manner. I walked in, approached Kevin, and whispered, "Kevin, let's go home." When he saw me, he froze for a moment, his eyes unfocused, as if he didn't recognize me. After a long moment, he finally snapped out of it, shoving me away impatiently. "Why are you here? Didn't I tell you to wait at home? This is a victory celebration, what are you doing here?" His push was so forceful I staggered back several steps, nearly falling. The studio staff stopped their chatter and laughter, all turning to stare at me with eyes brimming with curiosity and scrutiny. Kara chimed in from the side, her hand resting on Kevin's shoulder. When she looked at me, her eyes held a hint of smug satisfaction. "Julia, Kevin's exhausted today and had quite a bit to drink. I'll take him home myself, you should head back first. There are too many people here, it might upset Kevin." "Affect his mood?" I looked at Kevin's drunken state, then at Kara's hostess demeanor. My heart ached as if it were being sliced open, yet I grew strangely calm. "Kevin, let's break up." He froze for a moment, seemingly unable to process it. Blinking several times, he finally let out a scoffing laugh after a long pause. "What are you throwing a tantrum about now? Just because I didn't celebrate your birthday? Julia, I'm in a critical phase of my career right now. There are many things beyond my control. Can't you be a little more understanding? Stop throwing these unreasonable tantrums all the time." "Mature?" I laughed bitterly, tears finally spilling down my face. "I'm so mature that I watch you get cozy with other women, mature enough to forget my own birthday, mature enough to cook dinner every night and wait for you until midnight, yet I never get a single kind word in return. Kevin, I'm tired. I don't want to be the sensible one anymore." With that, I turned and walked away without a second glance. As I stepped out of the hotel, a light rain had begun to fall. The cold rain pelted my face, yet I felt no chill. All I felt was the weight that had been pressing down on my heart finally lifting. Early the next morning, I packed up my belongings. The rented apartment was filled with memories of us, photos from our trips together adorned the walls, his sketches for me lay on the desk, and the wardrobe held the matching outfits we'd bought together. I packed up all those things and left them by the trash bins downstairs, taking only my suitcase and that notebook filled with dreams for the future. I didn't say goodbye to Kevin, nor did I tell him where I was going. I changed my phone number and blocked all his contact information, vanishing from his world as if I'd vanished into thin air. Later, I heard from old friends that Kevin searched for me for a long time. He went to every place we'd ever been together and asked everyone who knew us, but found no trace of me. He thought I was just sulking and would come back once I cooled off, so he kept guarding that rental apartment, guarding his studio, waiting for me to return. But he didn't know I'd already made up my mind to leave the past behind completely, never to look back. 5 days after my cousins left, Kevin's car pulled up at the end of the ancient town's cobblestone street. The sleek black luxury vehicle stood out starkly against the surrounding old buildings with their gray tiles and white walls, drawing frequent glances from passers-by. He stood at the tea house entrance in a perfectly tailored custom suit, his hair combed immaculately, carrying several bags emblazoned with luxury brand logos. His gaze pierced through the glass window and landed on me. At that moment, I was holding Justin, teaching him to identify the ears of the wooden rabbit figurine on the table, his giggles echoing through the shop. The instant the door swung open, the wind chime tinkled, shattering the shop's tranquility. Kevin's gaze shifted from Justin to my face, his expression complex, a mix of surprise, nostalgia, and a barely perceptible hint of urgency. "Julia," he began, his voice slightly hoarse, as if he'd rehearsed it countless times. I tightened my grip on Justin's arm, my face expressionless as I spoke calmly. "Kevin, what is it?" The word Kevin stung like a thorn, causing Kevin's expression to flicker. He took 2 steps forward, his gaze settling on Justin's chubby little face before shifting back to me. "Is this your child?" "Yes, my son, Justin," I answered calmly without evasion. "If Kevin is here for tea, I can brew a pot for you, though the shop is small and it might be inconvenient. If it's something else, please just say so." Kevin set down the bag he was holding and walked to the table, his eyes pleading. "Julia, I know I was wrong back then. I shouldn't have ignored you or let you suffer. I've missed you terribly these past years and searched for you endlessly until my cousin finally gave me news of you. Will you come back? Let's start over. I'll give you and the children the best life, 100 times better than what you have now." His words struck me as ridiculous. I gave Justin a gentle pat on the back. The little guy seemed to sense the awkwardness and snuggled closer into my arms, his tiny hands clutching my collar tightly. "Kevin," I looked at him, my tone firm, "I'm married now. My husband is Landon, and we're very happy together. What happened back then is in the past. I've long since let it go. Please don't come back and disturb my life anymore." "Landon? The woodcarver?" Kevin's tone carried a hint of disdain. "Julia, what future could you possibly have with him? Can he afford to buy you the jewelry you love? Can he take you to live in a penthouse? He can't even provide the best educational resources for the kids." "I don't need any of that," I cut him off. "Landon can brew tea with me every day, carve little toys for Justin, and be there for me when I'm tired. That's enough. Kevin, this so-called best life of yours has never been what I want." Just then, Landon walked in from the backyard. He was holding a freshly sanded piece of wood. Spotting Kevin, he paused briefly before coming over to me. He gently placed his arm around my shoulder and looked at Kevin with a calm expression. "Sir, I'm Landon, Julia's husband. I believe you've heard my wife clearly. Please leave and stop interfering with our lives." Landon's appearance made Kevin's expression turn even more grim. He stared at Landon's rolled-up sleeves revealing his forearms, at the thin calluses on his hands from years of carving, his disdain growing deeper. "You're Landon? What makes you think you can make Julia happy?" Do you have any idea what I can give her? I don't need to know what you can offer her, Landon said flatly, yet with unquestionable resolve. All I know is that Julia wakes up smiling every day, and when she's with me, her eyes sparkle. That's something money and status can't buy. Kevin was about to say something else when Landon made a gesture to show him the door. Kevin, please leave, or I'll have to call someone. The neighbors in this old town are very kind-hearted, and they don't like people coming here to cause trouble. Kevin looked at me, then at Landon, his eyes filled with resentment and anger. He grabbed the bag from the table and slammed it hard onto the floor. The luxury packaging scattered everywhere, yet it didn't shake me in the slightest. Finally, he could only turn away in anger, slamming the door behind him as the heavy wooden panel echoed with a thunderous thud. Watching his figure disappear around the corner, Landon gently patted my back and said softly, "Don't be upset. I'm here." I leaned into his embrace, feeling a wave of warmth wash over me. Thank goodness, I hadn't made the wrong choice. Kevin didn't give up. Over the next few days, he lingered outside the tea house every day, sometimes delivering expensive gifts, sometimes standing at the entrance watching me from afar. He even went to the wood-carving workshop in the ancient town to find Landon, attempting to use money to make Landon leave me. Landon returned the money Kevin had given him, untouched, and told him calmly, "Julia and I share a bond that money can't measure. If you keep pestering us like this, we'll have no choice but to call the police." Kevin's persistent harassment had made the whole town aware of the situation. Everyone was on our side. Sometimes when they saw Kevin lingering at the door, they'd step forward to persuade him to stop disrupting our lives. Just as Kevin's harassment was becoming increasingly unbearable, Kara suddenly appeared in the ancient town. She wore a vibrant dress, her makeup flawless, carrying a designer handbag as she approached the tea house entrance. Spotting me hard at work, a provocative smile spread across her face. "Julia, it's been ages." She walked up to me, a hint of smugness in her voice. "Never imagined you'd be doing so well now, running this little tea house and raising a child. You must be working yourself to the bone." I paused what I was doing and looked at her, my tone flat. "Kara, what do you want?" "I'm here to see Kevin." Kara scanned the tea house with a look of utter disdain. "He's been spending all his time here lately, neglecting his studio work. Julia, you're married with kids, can't you show some self-awareness and stop clinging to Kevin? Do you really think he likes you? He's just confused right now. Once he comes to his senses, he'll realize who truly cares about him." I couldn't help but laugh. "Kara, have you got it backwards? It's Kevin who's been chasing after me, not the other way around. Besides, who he likes in his heart has nothing to do with me. I'm perfectly happy with my life now. Mind your own business and keep your boyfriend in check, stop bothering me." "You." Kara was rendered speechless by my words, her face alternating between pale and flushed. She took a deep breath and continued, "Julia, don't get too cocky. If you hadn't had that falling out with Kevin back then, I never would have had the chance to be with him. Now that Kevin's so successful in his career and we're about to get married, no matter how hard you try to take him away, you'll never win him over." Just then, Kevin emerged from the alley entrance. Spotting Kara, his expression darkened instantly. "What are you doing here? Who told you to come?" Kara's face immediately twisted into a hurt expression. "Kevin, I was worried about you, so I came to check." "Julia, she's picking on me." "Enough." Kevin cut her off, his voice thick with impatience. "Kara, stop spouting nonsense. If you hadn't deliberately driven a wedge between Julia and me back then, if you hadn't arranged for those photos to be taken while I was drunk, Julia and I wouldn't have ended up like this. Do you really think I liked you? I was only with you because Julia had left, And I was hurting. I just needed someone to be there for me. Kara froze, staring at Kevin in disbelief. Kevin, what did you say? How could you do this to me? Have you forgotten everything I've done for you over the years? I managed your studio, handled your client meetings, and now you say this to me. You did all that just for my money and status, didn't you? Kevin sneered. Kara, do you really think I don't know what you've been up to behind my back? You secretly diverted studio funds, privately contacted other clients, and tried to poach my clients for yourself. I know all about it. If it weren't for the years you've worked under me, I'd have had you thrown in jail long ago. Kara's face instantly drained of color. She staggered back several steps, her eyes filled with terror and despair. No, Kevin, listen to me. It's all a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? Kevin pulled out his phone and opened the chat logs and transfer receipts stored inside. How do you explain this evidence? Kara, we're done here. As of today, you're no longer an employee of the studio. My lawyer will be in touch to pursue charges for embezzlement. With that, Kevin didn't spare Kara another glance and turned to walk toward me again. But I took a step back, my voice icy. Kevin, what happened between you and Kara has nothing to do with me. Please take her and leave. Don't ever show your face to me or my family again. Kevin met my unwavering gaze and knew he'd lost his chance. A look of anguish and regret flashed across his face, yet he could only turn away helplessly. Dragging Kara, who was still wailing, he slowly disappeared around the corner of the alley. Neighbors who witnessed the scene began murmuring among themselves, saying Kara was getting what she deserved and Kevin had it coming. Kara didn't let it go. After Kevin kicked her out of the studio, she posted online everything Kevin had said, along with evidence she had of Kevin's misconduct at work. Suddenly, Kevin, the top architectural designer in the industry, became the target of widespread criticism. Netizens accused him of having a chaotic personal life and being unfaithful in his relationships. They also exposed issues of cutting corners and illegally modifying design plans in several of his architectural projects. Relevant authorities swiftly launched an investigation, seizing Kevin's studio and restricting his ability to leave the country. Former partners who had once surrounded him began distancing themselves, while those who had previously fawned over him now avoided him like the plague. Kevin's career plummeted from the heights of success to the depths of failure. He tried to come find me again, hoping I would forgive him. But this time, he didn't even make it past the town gate. The residents of the ancient town all knew him. When they saw him approaching, they stepped forward to block his path, preventing him from getting near the tea house. One night, he slipped out under cover of darkness to the wall behind the tea house courtyard, hoping to speak with me. Landon heard the commotion, stepped outside with a flashlight, and spoke in a calm yet warning tone. Kevin, stop clinging to this delusion. Julia has nothing to do with you anymore. Acting like this only makes everyone look down on you even more. You'd better go back and take care of your own affairs. Kevin stared at the warm lights inside the compound, listening to Justin's laughter drifting out, and finally broke down. He leaned against the wall, sobbing uncontrollably, repeating "I'm sorry" over and over, but it was all too late. Kara's fate was no better. After exposing Kevin's evidence, she may have ruined his reputation, but she herself became the subject of a police investigation for embezzling public funds. Ultimately, she not only had to repay the misappropriated funds but was also sentenced to prison, condemning her prime years to be spent behind bars. Meanwhile, Landon and I continued our peaceful, contented life in the ancient town. Each morning, I would rise early to brew tea, while Landon would head to his workshop in the backyard to carve. Justin grew up slowly, learning to paint from Landon. Sometimes he'd take a small carving knife and etch crooked patterns into wood. Business at the tea house flourished, attracting many tourists who loved to sip tea here while listening to us tell stories of the ancient town. Sometimes, I gaze out the window at the cobblestone path and recall the past, yet my heart remains utterly still. Those painful memories have long been soothed by the ancient town's gentleness and Landon's love. Happiness isn't measured by money or status, but by having loved ones by your side, a warm home, and a life you cherish. The outcome for Kevin and Kara was the result of their own choices. As for me, I had long since found my own happiness amidst the tea fragrance of the ancient town, never to look back.